I think we had a conversation not long before it came out, when it was just like previews and stuff like that, and you weren't 100% sure that this set was going to be for you, and you really like it now.
Yeah.
No, that's nice. That's a good way round to be. Yeah. Much better than looking forward to it and then it fucking biffing the fucking landing, right?
I think the thing for me for it is that there was not a bunch of cards that I needed to buy from it, which isn't a bad thing, but it's like my personal...
I like this set. It means I don't have to spend
No. It's more that the themes and everything it plays to aren't things that directly... Also, the lack of legendary creatures. Like, there was just a limit on, like... The set didn't demand me to invest into it very much. It wasn't like, okay, I've got a fairy deck, I better buy all the fairies. Well, there's only 11, so even if I did buy all the fairies, it's not that expensive to do
really
so.
Weren't much of this
well,
set,
let's talk about it, because I think that's my biggest issue with this, is it's trying to condense 4 sets into it. It's going from 4 sets of a block into a single set, and I think there are some aspects of that mean that things fall by the wayside.
So you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
In that case, then. Welcome to Magic the Flavour, the Magic Gathering podcast, where we talk about all things magic, flavour design, and lore. I'm your host, Andy Man.
Hello, this is Nathan Cancel. I did finger guns. That was awful.
On an audio format.
Yeah.
We're talking lore and Eclipsed. And I know what you're thinking, but Andy, it's your favourite thing. Universes Beyond has just dropped with the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, we've only got 80 cards left of the set to come out because they spoiled all of the...
Oh, well, yeah.
So technically, this is Lorwyn was already about Ninja Turtles, so kind of was just keeping the theme, right?
Yeah, well, I like it when they do a 2-set block scratcher.
Yeah, we've been asking for it for years.
But we had a toss-up, we had a choice, we had a conversation, and we were like, we can either get a little bit blood pressury about Turtles. This is... preview to that episode, not all of it's bad, I'm not going to rant about it all the time, but it would have been maybe a bit more tense, or we could just talk about the shit that we like from Lore and Eclipsed.
Also, it's kind of funny because obviously Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has dominated the internet, Reddit sphere, whatever, over the last couple of weeks. So I completely forgot that, we didn't even do a Flavour picks for Lorwyn, so it makes sense to go back and go let's get into the set a little bit before us and the rest of the world tries to move on, even though I've heard there's a lot of pre-releases that people are going, nah, we'll just keep doing Lorwyn drafts, thanks.
Well, I mean, we actually ditched Flavour picks as a episode type a few sets ago, but I kind of feel like this is the one where we just get to revel in it and just be happy about it.
Well, it's a really good... The thing about this set that I think we haven't really properly stated is that this was one of my formative sets when I was started playing properly. I've been collecting since I don't know, Onslaught, Legions, all that kind of time ago, by just picking up random cards when I was in primary school. But I properly started investing in the game when my mate Craig found my box of Magic cards in the cupboard. What the fuck is this? And then suddenly, 15, 16 years later, here I am in a crippling debt. But this was the set that was the advent of my Magic career, and it's quite nice to be able to look at it from a nostalgic point of view, as well as a new set kind of point of view. Because for some people, they've never been to Lorwyn before, so can they do it justice? Reliving all of the hype and the nice notes for it, but also then having something new and exciting to show,
Yeah.
And for you, obviously, you didn't get to play during Lorwyn originally.
No.
So is this set going to be as engaging for you as it is a nostalgia hit for me?
Yeah, for sure. Couple of little bits of housekeeping on the set then. So the art director for the set was Deborah Garcia, who was also a Magic artist. Have a wild guess they've only art directed one other set, I believe. Have a wild guess what it could have been.
Eldraine?
Hey, yeah, exactly. Wilds of Eldraine. yeah. So obviously a really natural pick for this. And then if Magali Villeneuve was kind of one of the chief art designers on Wilds of Eldraine, this time around we got Evan Fong, who there was also
Fong.
Yeah, I bet she hears that all the fucking time. And I bet she loves it. Yeah. And I bet she's like, yeah, do it again. Yeah. Not fuck off.
Own that shit,
So yeah, and obviously a lot of their artwork is also all over this set on the key art and all that kind of thing. There was a video that was the Coast released to kind of tie in. They do this with they clearly do this with sets which they really love, because I remember when they first really did this kind of thing with Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty, where they do a design video where they bring in like a narrative director and a design team person and an art designer like M. Fong, and then like members of the community. So you had like Rustic Studies, Magic Man Sam, and then Amy the Amazonian, and then Jimmy Wong was the moderator. And they go, here are the cards, look how cool. But really it's about people going like, we fucking love Lorwyn, you know? And they talk about a lot of the art direction. If you've not seen that video, go back and watch it. I'm going to be referencing it quite a lot in this next conversation.
And I think it's kind of obvious, like this set does very much feel like it feels like a continuation. Like it doesn't feel like there's a big difference, I think, between Neon Dynasty and the original Kamigawa block. Obviously, there was a lot of aspects of it that they managed to maintain, but there was almost a reimagining. And then Tarkir, I think, didn't need a reimagining, but obviously it was a condensation. And this is the same thing. We're condensing this four set block that we've had of Morningtide, of Lorwyn, Morningtide, Shadowmoor, and Eventide, and we've just kind of like pushed it all together and gone, can we have a concentrated representation? And they've also set themselves up to be able to go back again if they want to, even though I feel like they pretty much hit the nail on the head. I don't
think we'll go back to Lorwyn anytime soon.
No, and I think it's one of those things of the twee was lovely to return to, but there was only so much twee you can squeeze out before you're like, okay, we already do have. It's because it sits in that niche between Bloomburrow and Eldraine, where it has that kind of fairy tale whimsy that Eldraine has, but then it also has the creature comfort aspect that Bloomburrow has, and it kind of just sits in that little niche between.
Yeah, what I will say is, I mean, this is a Flavour Picks episode for like, this is kind of us being positive. There's only a couple of things that I sort of was a bit like disappointed by in this set. A lot of it was we spoke about in our narrative episode, being like the actual like mechanics of how this world works. I think it works better on paper, like by paper I mean cardboard on the cards, than it does in the story, which is kind of a weird way around because you'd think the story has more legroom to like explain it. I think it's much more grokkable on cards than it is when you're trying to explain what the fucking hell is going on with Erdui Salute.
And it's also interesting because going into the Planeswalkers guide, there seems to be this big focus on like the Eclipsed side, and it's even like the name of the set.
Yeah,
it might as well have not been.
Yeah,
there's only I think one cycle, and one cycle of creatures which does this thing of where it searches for a creature type or it searches for a land of either type. Very good for a limited point of view because it helps feed into your mana fixing. Obviously, there was a bit of hybrid coming in as well. We'll talk about all the things that returned in a moment.
The other thing that I was a bit disappointed by, just so I can move past it, is that I did feel like, especially with a lot of the influences that the art direction team took from like Jim Henson puppetry, and I think in a couple of like articles they even name dropped things like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, right? Which is the only Universes Beyond set that myself and our friend Richard would ever really fucking get into. If they did a UB Jim Henson's workshop, they would win me round. I'd completely flip and be like, yeah, well, Universes Beyond is great. But I feel like they did have the opportunity to go full like nonsense, whimsy, not taking itself too seriously. And I think, unfortunately, especially maybe in the story, the characters of Lorwyn, the denizens of Lorwyn, took themselves a bit too seriously, and I felt like it was all a bit melodramatic, when actually they could have just been full Labyrinth, right?
Yeah, true.
Anyway, small gripe.
But yes, I think my small gripe going into this as well is that it is a concentration, and there is only so much space, and there are a lot of things that we even spoke about during our typal video, like the unique types to Lorwyn, or the unique representations of creature types within Lorwyn.
Oh, this is our third Lorwyn episode.
It is.
We haven't done that for a while.
No. But it's quite nice to have that as reference, because it allows us to see whether each creature type was represented properly and whether or not there was enough room to get all of the little bits and pieces into the set. And whether, I think with some of them, was there any point in bothering if you're not going to do it properly?
Right. Well, that's cool. That's a take, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose if the last time we went to Lorwyn, we had 4 sets, right? Because we had 2 Lorwyn and 2 Shadowmoor, right? That's quite a lot.
It is a significant difference. It's like a quarter of the amount of card stock.
I think with the Commander decks and the set itself, and obviously the Commander decks aren't exclusively Lorwyn cards.
No.
I think it's like 426, and like about 30 of those are reprints.
Because exactly. So there'll be a bunch of reprints. I think there's only like something to see like 12 or 13 like new cards in each of the Commander decks, because I had a little look for reference. And we'll get to that a little later. We're not really touching on the Commander decks much, but there is a couple of data points that it helps inform as we go forwards. Okay, so from like a structure point of view, I guess we should probably look at like some more sweeping things like mechanics. I don't think Convoke is a very unusual one to have in a set that's all about creatures wanting to be together and in what's it in a
community.
In a community, yeah.
I never really paid much attention to Convoke as a mechanic, and since building Erdui Salute, because I did, as listeners of the podcast will know, on my pre-release I opened that legend, which is the only legend I wanted to build as a commander deck. And now I'm obsessed with the idea of Convoke to the point where I think I'm going to build a Wizards deck, which is Kaza, which is essentially Convoke for spells because of Wizards, right? And I love it. I think it's the best thing ever.
It's really cool.
I also never read Convoke properly until our last game session. Where
you can pay for coloured mana.
I was like, I need 2 white mana, and you were like, no, you don't.
No. That's why Chord of Calling is so broken, because you can just tap out all your mana and then tap out your creatures to get another creature in.
No. Hasn't stopped that deck from winning, though.
No. So Convoke was fine, cool, lovely. I mean, I think Convoke is more of an evergreen mechanic now. I think you can shove it in any set and it not be an issue. Similar to Surveil, there's a bit of Surveil in the set, but that's now an evergreen mechanic. I think the 2 main ones they wanted to focus on was Vivid, which basically cares about all the different coloured permanents that you have in play. Opposite to almost a Chroma, which was like a Morningtide ability, where it was like how many of... It was kind of like proto Devotion.
Yeah.
How many symbols you have, but it wasn't necessarily always just in play. It could also mean in your graveyard, things like that.
This isn't really a flavour thing. I think flavour-wise it's fine, because obviously you have a lot of the hybrid stuff, and it's more like, if it's a set that's really focusing on like the different shades of a character, having like, did you pay more green for this? Did you pay a mix of green-red? And it's more powerful if you add in all different factors. I think that flavour is quite nice, because it also works mechanically with all the hybrid mana, right? I don't like colour-based mechanics. They've done this before with, what was it? It was Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah, you Adamant.
Yeah.
When you wanted it. But that was fine because the set was trying specifically to push you into doing monocoloured things.
Yeah.
And I think historically Magic is much better at making powerful multicoloured cards than they are at making deliberately monocoloured and push monocoloured cards, because there isn't... I don't know why, but it does seem maybe more boring not to be able to play all the colours, and sometimes having 4 green in the cost would make for a more interesting design, because you can make that card really, really, really green flavoured. But maybe the average player doesn't care about the concentration of green in the card. Like, I don't... it'd be quite interesting to do like maybe this is a future episode of where we look at, say, a card that has a single white pip, 2 white pips, 3 white pips, 4 white pips, and then see along that scale what abilities are listed there and whether or not we agree that that card is more white the further up it goes. But in this format, obviously, we've still got hybrid mana, which, ignoring the modern controversy of whether or not you should be allowed to use off-colour hybrids in your commander decks, like, it does create a better mechanical cohesion to be able to go 5 colours. And obviously the aspect of Lorwyn this represents is like the Primal Beyond, right? This literally vivid nature of the elementals of Lorwyn, which for the most part take a little bit more of a backseat this time around.
Well,
because they had obviously 4 sets, you could really, really push it in the old block, but there isn't quite as much of it here as I thought there would be.
We'll talk about elementals as their own thing and all the incarnations and stuff. 2 things. I do want to hear what your opinion is on hybrid mana after I say my hot take about Lorwyn as a world building. I think they could cut the Primal Beyond stuff and be totally fine.
Right.
Why is that? Why do we have a plane within a multiverse that has its own Beyond?
So there are 2 aspects of this that piss me off, right? It's one, that the Flamekin, Rhymekin, Cinder thing. The fact there are no Cinders in the set annoys me, because we're kind of jumping ahead to the elemental part of the of the pod. But the separation, I think, is fine. But then that should be the entire focus of the plane, in my opinion, because you've got this really like exterior, like ethereal world that's kind of like leaking and bleeding in, and all of these elementals are weird ass motherfucking things you can't really interact with normally, even though there's one of them which is interacting directly with the Kithkin to try and save it. Like, so there is aspects of that in the set, but it's not a big focus. And at that point, if it's not a big focus, just get rid of it. You can use that in another set really, really well, having the outside Beyond playing into.
Well, they've got Kaldheim. Kaldheim is a plane made of realms, which was weird enough, but it made sense for the plane. I think they try and throw everything into Lorwyn, and sometimes just doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things of where, because over the 4 block structure before, you had a real diversity, and you could have a big diversity to the point of where there's probably too many different types of weird elementals, similar to the Camis, right?
Yeah.
After 3 blocks of what Champions, Betrayers, and
Heroes.
Was it Heroes of Kamigawa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Heroes, Champions, Betrayers. Yeah. So with all of that, by the time you got to the 3rd set, like, the Camis could just be absolutely anything. You'd be like, yeah, sure, just another weird squiggly gibbly monster, whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas in Neon Dynasty, they did a good job of curtailing, like, the...
They had jobs, they had reasons.
Yeah, it felt more deliberate. But with this, it felt, with Lorwyn Eclipse, it felt like they were there and they needed to have them there, but they kind of limited the option. And in saying that, I think what we got was very good, and we'll look at that a little bit later.
So, hybrid mana, yes or no, in Commander?
So, my opinion of hybrid mana, and this is, I think, a take that I feel like is quite sensible, is that if it's not about what your commander can do, it's about what your commander can't do. So if you have a card that is both black and red, your commander that is green and red shouldn't be able to use black mana, so any hybrid that involves black, because it's also a black spell, shouldn't be allowed to be run because your commander doesn't have... It's not the fact that the spell is red.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the spell is black.
Yeah.
So it's not the fact that you could be using it, it's the fact that the other side of it you can't use.
I fully fucking agree. Formats... Here's a wild take for everyone, and I'm sorry that I'm not a professional Magic content creator with several 100,000 viewers on my fucking YouTube, so I get to have an opinion that's wrong. Formats are defined by their restrictions, not by just do whatever the fuck you want. Restrictions.
It's an arbitrary rule that you made up. So's 60 cards. So's singleton format. So's anything. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the same thing as Planes. And look, I know these are different issues with different reasons, but that kind of catch-all for me also explains Planeswalkers for commanders. No, thank you. Oh, like having more than 100 cards on your deck. No, thank you. Mm-hmm. Having singleton not be a thing. No, thank you. Do those formats. They are not Commander. It's because people want to play Commander because it's the thing that everyone plays, but they're desperate to do it in whatever kind of try-hard way they want to do. And unfortunately, that's what it sounds like when you talk about hybrid mana.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are some decks out there that are quite interesting. I've seen people say, like, oh, I'm going to play a mono-blue deck, but every card in it's hybrid. I'm like, that's cool. And that limitation will make your deck building more difficult because a lot of hybrid cards aren't that amazing. But when we had that feedback thing of where it showed, like, slightly more in favour than slightly more not in favour, but at the extremes, you know? Like, it was like 26% alone. Yeah, absolutely, I want to get changed. And there was like 24% said, absolutely, I don't want it changed. That shows there's enough of an equality there that I don't think they should make the decision yet. But it does worry me that they can then look at that data and go, well, clearly there is some amount of market for it. So if we just keep pushing this agenda, eventually it's just going to happen anyway.
But I think it's weirdly, and this I might be wrong on this, but it weirdly screams to me of like the health of other formats in the space. Commander is like the best. No, it's the biggest way to play Magic at the moment. It's not the best. If we had more of an equilibrium between like different types of formats, like say if Brawl really took off in the way they wanted it
to, add it to that.
Do it.
But the other thing as well is it allows decks to do more, and especially in like a more limited standard environment. But in Commander, you've got so many options anyway. Yeah. It's not like you're hurting. So if anything, I feel like it creates more of a dilution when it shouldn't. And the whole point is that color identity is quite important for Commander because that's kind of what defines the format.
Yeah.
So having a mechanic that deliberately riles or undermines that kind of questions all of the legitimacy of everything. At that point, why are any of the arbitrary rules the rules? Should it be 20 poison instead of 10 poison? Yeah. Should there be a higher or lower commander damage rate? Should you have more or less cards in your deck? You know, like the fact that certain formats like Legacy and Vintage require restricted versus legal, that kind of thing. That shows specific to that format you need a little bit of tweaking on certain rules to make it work properly. I don't think Commander needs that. No. It's already got so much opportunity and so many options that giving more options just feels arbitrary in my mind.
I agree. Anyway, back to
Eclipse. So to come back quickly to that Eclipse thing as well, it's like I don't
27% of our listeners just turned off.
That's fine. We got rid of the baddies, but we kept the baddies.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
See what you did there?
Yeah,
they won't know which one's which.
No.
Fucking idiots.
But the fact that the Eclipse side of things in Lorwyn isn't there, like there are a few different aspects that were in the Planeswalker's Guide and are part of like Lorwyn as a whole that we know because we've already been there before, that the newer players might not be aware of, that they're only getting a little hint of it. And it's kind of weird that certain things weren't pushed on more. There weren't more than just the legendary cycle of transform cards. Like there was an article I saw on Reddit of someone going, hey, look at all of these creatures and look at all of these creatures. Like they must be the counterparts to each other. And some of them you could look at and go, absolutely, this is daytime version of this person, this is nighttime version of this person. Yeah. They just haven't created the transform card on it because they only did it for the legends. But for some of them, it's like you're really pushing something that's probably just hinted at in general and is part of the set as a whole as we know narratively.
I mean, an example of that is that are we talking about Gallant Foul Knight Kithkin versus there's a green one. Hang on, I've got it on my phone. Bristlebane Outrider.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that there's a duality there.
Yeah.
But obviously they only have so much space for transform cards, which is kind of annoying because had they led into it more...
You're saying transformer cards, which they have done.
Yeah, but they didn't have transform, they had convert.
Oh, God.
But the thing that annoys me about that is that you could card equity, right? In a set that you're trying to concentrate four sets down into one set, or at least you have a significant less amount of space for. Why weren't there more transform cards that allowed you to have the stock of both of these creatures? Maybe, there's probably mechanical reasons, complication reasons, but they didn't want to do it. But it would have made sense for me to, if you're going to try and do this anyway outside of transform cards, you probably should have just committed to more transform cards, and then you give more space to do more things that are otherwise missing, which we'll get to a little bit later. And then the other ability, really, other than Vivid, sorry, we are jumping about a little bit here, is Blight. So there's no Wither in this set, apart from one card, which is right in front of me, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, because that's a reference. So there isn't really a lot of Wither in the set. It's another reason why the Cinder thing might not have worked, because Cinders were tied a lot to the Wither side of things. Blight is, you put -1/- counters on creatures you control or a creature you control, and it basically allows things to have an extra effect or an extra bit of boon, you know, like, it's essentially kicker. It's another form of kicker. But that's fine. I think it works. Like, it would have been strange to have a representation of Lorwyn that didn't have -1/- counters there. And this idea of Blight feels a little bit more whimsy. It feels a little bit more like agricultural, which Lorwyn is naturally anyway.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like the fact it's got tree folk, which can be blighted. You've got the goblins, which are a little bit more, or the boggarts, sorry, I should say, which are a little bit more. They feel. The boggarts feel really hyper-specified in this compared to before, where they've still
refined a lot, yeah.
There's still a visual and an aesthetic diversity, but a mechanical concentration of being like, hey, the older you get, the weirder you get, and then you put all these curses and stuff out. It felt a little bit more like the witches from Eldraine as well. Yeah. This idea of Blight kind of works for me.
There's a green card called Blight, isn't there, in this set, which is literally the Blight mechanic. The artwork's got a tree folk who's got, like, a arm that's all boiled and pustuled.
Blighted Burgeoning.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Yeah. You enchant the land. No. That's from March of the Machine.
Oh, dear.
There's a lot of cards with Blight in the name, apparently.
Maybe I know the card art. I've seen it. Aha! Blight Rot. 2 and a black.
Oh, okay, so a green card.
Put 4 -1/- counters on target creature.
Yes,
I knew I wasn't going fucking mad. Blight Rot. There we go. That was 5 minutes that I've had to chop out of this podcast.
Yeah. What was it in reference to? Can you remember what our exact point was?
Oh, I was just saying that Blight is a card.
Yeah. But I like the idea. Right, so the -1/- counters are a really cool niche space. They tend to not do them very often because +1/+1 counters are so prevalent in every fucking thing because it's such an easy thing to add as a modifier to a creature. But this idea of putting a negative counter on to either make the creature more powerful or they can come in smaller and get bigger as an effect happens. There's a Kithkin that does that. That's very cool. Or you have a few of the different tree folks, which will come in with -1/- counters. You can remove a counter to have an ability. That's very similar to what they did back in the original Lorwyn block. There was a few cards that had a single -1/- counter, put them on. And then if you have other ways, then you can then blight the creature, take off the counter again, and keep reusing that effect. It feels like it's annoying, because as someone who didn't get to play Lorwyn Limited, even though you did, I'm looking at the set as a whole and I'm seeing all of these really cool limited interactions. And I'm like, God, this feels like a really well-designed, integrated set where all of the different types can like link over together and have cross synergies. And Blight does give you a lot of agency, and it gives you another not valve, I guess it's another valve that you can tweak the pressure on, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the analogy.
That's right,
I'm doing like a twisty thingy, but it's another knob to tweak, you know? But yeah, apart from Blight and Vivid, which Vivid essentially was just another way of shortening some text on things, because Bloom Tender already existed, again, within the original Lorwyn block. I think it was Eventide. The idea of it taps for a colour for each colour that you control. It's nice for them to now have an ability word for that to be able to use in the future, because Vivid doesn't particularly specify Lorwyn, and Blight doesn't specify Lorwyn either. But it's also funny now that we've got several different types of -1/- counter ability words with Wither.
Yeah.
Was it not Undying? What's the other one?
Persist.
Persist, yeah, because that's
which is also in this set.
Yeah, on that one card, yeah, exactly. So, I like it. I think it's cool. -1/- counters being a Lorwyn thing is very interesting. I wonder if we'll get that again in other set. Was it also Amonkhet? Amonkhet did -1/- counters as well, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, with the Amits and things like that.
Yeah, because you'd remove them to do things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's a cool space. They just don't get to do it very often, so we probably won't see it again for a little while. And then other than that, my big sweeping thing, again, looking at our last episode about Lorwyn outside of the story, is just looking at the different types, the different creature types, and then seeing, did they manage to do the things that we spoke about, keep some diversity? Do they do anything new? Do they put any fresh twists on? Is it representative of what they looked like back when we first saw them? Is there a fresh take on them? Are there certain things that rub me the wrong way? Because we've also now, you've got to consider, we've condensed the the 3-color aspect of the different creature types into a 2-color aspect. The Kithkin were being white-green, moving into white-blue. We don't really get the blue side of things. Similarly with fairies were black-blue, moving into white-blue. We don't really get that. And that's kind of the same across the entire way. And it's kind of interesting that certain cards I feel like don't feel as like much as they fit when I'm used to seeing the bug-eyed Kithkin. I'm used to expecting to see them on blue cards. Instead, I'm getting them on green cards, and I'm like, does that feel weird? Because I feel like the green side would be less antagonistic towards other types than the white side.
Well, but why is that?
So I guess from the Flavour point of view, white was be more about the community, right, and more about wanting to care and look after each other, whereas green might be more of the survival of the fittest aspect that Vorinclex really epitomised of being like, hey, it makes sense from an evolution point of view to protect your own. You know, the natural way of things is there is a natural us versus them in most of the animal kingdom, and even in plantdom. Like most species will be like, I protect me, fuck every one of you else.
Exactly, yeah.
I'll either eat you, kill you, or maybe there'll be some slight symbiosis, but symbiosis in nature doesn't happen as much as
sort of parasitic, really.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so maybe I'm wrong. You know, and then looking at Kithkin, there were 21 of them. And I feel like they did a good job.
So yeah, it's funny. So this is really where I think this is my first set of Lorwyn coming around first, like as in fresh, as opposed to just historic. And you obviously played the first time. Obviously, this fantasy setting is nothing new to me, and wasn't when I first started playing Magic. And I must admit, when I think about fantasy tropes, things like halflings, gnomes, dwarves, hobbits, that kind of thing, outside of as if they are the main characters. So obviously, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and things like that. But say if I booted up World of Warcraft, never in a bajillion years.
Wow.
I did play World of Warcraft a little bit. Never in a bajillion years would I pick like a gnome or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just not really my jam. But this time round, I fucking love the Kithkin. Not only was it my pre-release archetype, which I thought was really cool. I think they're a lot more coherent in this set. I think when you look at older Lorwyn Shadowmoor cards, the duality is a nice idea, like the community aspect being the through line, but the welcoming community versus the paranoid xenophobic community being the kind of two sides of the coin with the sun and the moon is obviously still there and really prevalent. But like the art direction's a lot more synergistic, like with the way that they actually portray them. They're not just like little humanoids. They have like squished heads and like wide set eyes and like
they are much more bug-eyed, right?
They look like a real.
What
like,
is it? The
type in Magic, right? They look like a
figure of fable was a good example of this. Yeah,
and I just think I get them a lot more in this set. And with that reduction that you were talking about, the downside is that you don't get diversity of like exploring what these things can do, which is true enough. But I think the upside of it is that you actually get to see like the people who designed this set have sat with Lorwyn for as long as the players have, maybe even longer. So they understand what did or didn't work the first time round.
Yeah, sure.
And Magic design and Magic player expectation has changed in the past, like, 15 years or whatever. And so I think you needed to do something a bit more streamlined and a bit more grokkable, because you do only get 400 cards.
Exactly. Well, that's something I was going to say, is that the fact we only get 21 Kithkin, and like you think that's low. No, very few of the types get anything more than that.
Yeah.
And several of them get significantly less than that. So there is, much less card equity to be able to represent this particular type, like the creature type. And I do agree that there must have been an aspect where they look and go, what about the Kithkin made them even blue? It's not just confusing from a play point of view of where you're drafting colours and you're playing, if you want to play Kithkin, you're playing across all of the bank colours. But did it even make sense from a flavour point of view, as we are now, to look at them and go, what would have made you blue? What would a blue Kithkin, a mono blue Kithkin look like? Would there be them, and would it work?
Yeah.
And I feel like there's also even been a portrayal of where, because there was a lot of hybrid colour cards in the original block that were betraying the fact they could be blue or white. It's like, but realistically, this is like 80% white, 20% blue. So let's just cut that 20% and stop muddying the waters.
I think doing Figure of Fable, which was obviously Figure of Destiny, was the kind of the red-white one, right?
Yeah, it was the original progressing creature type, which they've done obviously a few times now since.
I think that's a much better card to do an homage to than, say, something like Steel of the God Hand, which, although it's a wicked card, it is similar, like has a similar idea of like Kithkin having like this destiny kind of thing, and you're like, well, like it needs to be less about the expansive nature of them and more about the collective nature.
I feel that's also a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like the Hobbit kind of thing, of where the little people end up being like the most important figures and turn the tide. Exactly, yeah. But it doesn't fit narratively here. No. I also enjoy the fact that the Kithkin will just ride anything. Like there's one where it's riding a giant chicken, and then there's one where it's riding a bear. There's a bear. There are bears in Lorwyn, apparently.
There's loads of things in Lorwyn which you wouldn't think of. It's kind of a shame that they didn't have a Kithkin Omen Path explorer in Thunder Junction riding something.
Oh, that would have been really cool.
That was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just really small against a bunch of really giant people.
And then the other thing I find kind of funny, Clachan Festival. And in the picture there are 9 Kithkin. And when this enchantment enters, create 2 white and green Kithkin creature tokens.
Festival!
And there's no way to make more. It's not like it gets bigger and bigger as they go.
No,
that's a lie. Sorry, for 5 mana you create another one. Sorry, I lied.
I mean, still, that's not really a party.
No, I know it takes a real concentration of white mana to get this party going.
We've had fucking hangover and come down sessions that have more people than that.
Exactly. Oh, funny. Good.
I like the Kithkin.
Yeah.
They did well.
Big fan. And then, okay, so elves, which got the largest number out of any type with 29 in Lorwyn Eclipse. Now, what did I have to say about these guys? I think my thing for these guys is that the beauty aspect of them is a lot more prevalent here than it was the original time around.
Yeah, I think obviously the concept was in the last set. But again, I think the last set, the art direction was still playing very much on like that late 80s, early 90s style of fantasy art. Whereas this time around, obviously sensibilities have changed, and now they can it doesn't have to be this kind of like I'm going to reference him again because I've been reading him recently. God, people are going to be bored of this. That kind of original Terry Pratchett book cover style, where everything's a bit kind of wibbly wobbly and a bit sort of gross, right? Everything's like not classically very good to look at. Whereas this time around, they're like, no, we need to make them look fucking beautiful.
Well, Twilight Diviner by Pauline Voss, fucking gorgeous. Where's the other one? Dawnhand Eulogist.
Well, so let's talk about Dawnhand Eulogist a little bit,
because this is one of the key art pieces, right? They came out, and it's annoying when they do this and they just put it on some wanky common that you can't really play.
No, massively disagree.
Because there's another card later that's very similar to this. I think it's the Curse Tosser, the Boggart.
I disagree entirely. This is exactly. This is so funny that you jumped straight into it. This is exactly the debate. So this is the big Evan Fong art piece that everyone's going nuts about. It shows a Shadowmoor elf with a lotus blossom in front of them that's like pouring out. And it's got these beautiful like pink and like yellow and blue hues, which was very much the kind of colour palette they were going for with the Shadowmoor elves. Now, absolutely no do you put only great artworks on rare cards. That, I mean, the implications of like, we talk about the secondary market about like, you know, they make rare cards really good because they sell more. Like, there's all conspiracies about that anyway. Yeah. Imagine if they came out and went, for rare cards we commission better art.
No, of course. And obviously it all needs to fit, and sometimes they don't necessarily know what each card's going to do anyway straight away, and they want to mix
every
and match.
Card. I said this on social medias as well, on this exact debate. It said every card deserves to be beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's so funny how this is maybe this will be the art of the year in the same way that Glimpse the Impossible was 2 years ago.
True.
And that wasn't a fucking common.
Is it a common? Yeah, but it's also a common in a modern Masters set, which makes it about the same strength as a rare. No, of course. And I only joke because the other card I mentioned, Twilight Diviner, is on a rare and is a card that I've bought a copy of because it's just so fucking pretty. But also, it's funny that you mentioned the hues. Like, I do like the fact that purple is really prevalent as well here, which really kind of shows. So what they've done well here is they've shown the sinister qualities to the elves in this kind of like the poisony, like behind their beautiful facades, their words might be poison.
Twilight Diviner was also one of my picks as well. That's so funny.
Absolutely stunning. But even then, like the beauty on Vinebred Brawler, Stoic Grove Guy, like, and obviously Morcant, our queen.
Yes, Morcant. I am a little surprised that Victor Darming has got away with that art, because like obviously like it's not like nudity or anything, but like the overt.
I mean, technically, it is literally nudity.
Sure. But like, and I'm not saying this.
But it's not sexualized, explicit nudity. It's just there's a leg out, you know.
But I will, and I'm saying this. We have actually been accused of being a little bit thirsty on this podcast. I have no idea why.
Sorry, one moment.
What I'm saying next is coming from a very non-thirsty place. That artwork is incredibly sexual, right?
Yeah.
And is intentionally so.
But I think that's the whole point, is that she's supposed to feel disarming and intimidating, but not from a, I'm big and boisterous, from a...
It's energy.
I'm so beautiful that it's almost the Gladriel aspect of, you can't look at her straight on because her grace is so much that it makes you feel timid and you regress within yourself as you're beholding her, and it's almost like this happens. You look at that and you go, oh, should I be looking at this? Yeah, so it's almost deliberately representative of the person that she is.
Yeah.
And again, it's a bottom-up shot, so it's showing this hierarchy as well that she's got. I think it's actually a fantastic study piece on something living up to the expectation without being as over as some of the magic art used to be back in the day that I know that a lot of people have had issue with. You know, look at Silkbind's a really, really bad example because it's so deliberately over.
Earthbind, do you mean?
Earthbind, sorry. Where it feels deliberately inappropriate.
Well, do you know what? This is maybe not a discussion for this particular podcast. I have seen quite sex positive people on social media or like on sort of discussions about magic cards who are newer to the game, who talk about a lot of the sort of early 90s, mid-90s card art and cards like Earthbind and talk about them like, wow, this is rad. And it's just very funny actually how...
Because we don't typically get that as much anymore, so it's kind of funny there was a bit more freedom.
Sensibilities are different and maybe motivations of the artists are slightly lost, but also, like, I mean, different discussion. All I'll say is that there are many magic artists that work in Magic today that are very lauded, that when you look at their own personal portfolios, do create art that maybe wouldn't make it into a Magic set.
Sure.
And then you do have to remember, of course, everyone listening, this game is a game for 14-year-olds.
Exactly, yeah. And as much as this card can look sexy, it's not necessarily sexual. And that's where the delineation needs to come.
I suppose I said the word sexual earlier on, but I meant more in the energy rather than like trying to be fan service.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's not deliberately cleavage here, you know.
God, I'm a 35-year-old man and I'm still trying to like desperately explain that I'm not super horny for pictures of elves. It's just never gonna go away.
No.
I don't have a hentai collection, I swear, and I'm not yucking your yum if you do.
Right, cool, fairies. So
anyway, talking about inappropriately dressed denizens of Lorwyn. Yeah, sure.
So fairies, only 11 fairies, and this is kind of interesting. This is where I was originally going to have a references section in my study, in my research. I was going to have a references throwback section. Turns out of these 11 fairies, I think at least 6, maybe 7 of these are direct references to old.
11 fairies.
Only 11 fairies.
Oh my gosh!
I know.
In the fairy archetype setting.
So when I told you earlier, when I was like, the good thing about this set that I've come around to, whilst you doing my research now, I've really softened on it. But at the time when I was looking through all the cards, I usually would judge a set by, okay, how much money is this going to cost me? You know, how many of these cards do I need? And I've got a fairy. Obviously, Isla has a fairy deck. Isla has an elf deck. There's so many of the creature types within this that could have really bankrupted me with. And obviously, you've got the Bitterbloom Bearer being an expensive chase card.
Yeah, that's like the key one, isn't it?
But this is a really good drive-by of going, have they represented Old Lorwyn well, whilst also giving it like not a new spin, but at least keeping it fresh? And the answer is yes. Like the diversity of the species of fairies you get here is ridiculous. You have everything from the typical ones you'd find on Eldraine, where they feel way more humanoid, and then you have some that are super insectile, like the Voracious Tome Skimmer by Loic Canavagia. Like she thick. She's like a moth. She looks very unhumanoid, and it's quite nice to have that diversity across them because it makes them feel a little less. It makes them feel more mischievous. It makes them feel less like typical sentience, you know? They're not going to be like your normal Kithkin where they have certain sensibilities. They're going to be a bit more cheeky, fractious, you know?
Evan Fong spoke about this on that video I referenced because she was in charge of doing the sort of key redesign for some of the denizens of Lorwyn. And like the elves being one that they kind of thought, actually we'll keep them sort of as is, but we'll pump the kind of beauty factor. I think they said as well about the fairies that the redesign was less about trying to make them look different, but trying to make them look more more of the thing that they was good, which was the insectoid thing. They look different to throne fairies. What am I talking about? Eldraine fairies to Ramnagan fairies, whatever, because they are insectile in nature.
And I think that's a really good design.
A really good way to do it. And insects are obviously diverse. It's not all just wasps and cockroaches. You have as you say, moths and grasshoppers and all this stuff kind of.
Yeah, loads of different types. Yeah, and then so even it's kind of funny that Flitterwing Nuisance is a fairy riding an insect. It's like, well, you've got wings, you don't need to, right?
No, but that's not different. We've had that before.
Because we've had that before, exactly, yeah. I remember Wasp Lancer being one of my favourite cards from the original.
There's a blue-black legend that people play a lot of time.
Nimris. Yeah, Nimris. Yeah, she's in... Because it's funny, because again, I have an Alayla deck and there's also the Turgwil deck that's going to be turned into a Marilyn deck. So that Marilyn deck's going to be pure elves, whereas the Alayla deck's a flash deck. But obviously a lot of fairies have flash, so it works with her, and obviously she wants fairies to attack and hit people to goad them. So I've essentially got 2 different fairy decks that both use as much as of the suite that's available as possible. But in terms of throwbacks, obviously Bitter Bloom Bearer, Bitter Blossom, Dream Caesar by Omar Ryan is the almost exact same artwork as Thoughtseize. And it's funny that they've gone instead from Thoughtseize to Dream Seizing. Glamourmite is just a twist on Pestamite. The Glenalendra Guardian essentially looks like a combination of Scion of Una and Glenalendra Sentinels, or Sentinels of Glenalendra, which is quite fun to see, like, that the Sentinels have now upgraded into being Guardians, and they've now got a shield as well as their little lance thing. Illusion Spinners, basically almost the exact same aesthetic as Mistbind Click. And then Nightmare Sower having a similar idea to Dream Spoiler Witches in mechanical concept, and having a similar naming convention to Sower of Temptation. So there's like a real, like, you look at this and it almost just feels like old Lorwyn cards, because they've just done a fantastic job of just taking that initial formula that works very well, no one had any issue with it, giving it a fresh little twist, and then just leaving it be. And as much as there are only 11 of the creatures in there, there are a lot more fairies in non-creature spells throughout the set as well.
I think we have a propensity to focus just on creatures. Like, I wonder if we look back across all our Flavour Picks episodes, actually how much we talk about spells, because that is equity to explore almost more abstract themings about these ideas than the creature cards. Right?
Yeah, I remember when we talked about things like techniques and stuff like that, when people have like signature spells.
Well, we have commands in this set.
Exactly, precisely, yeah. So I think it's also, you know, Magic is built for limited, or sets typically are built for limited in mind first, and limited is dominated by creature combat. So a large swath of the set is going to be creatures, and it is our way of representing the denizens of the plane. The magics of the plane is a little bit more ethereal, and typically on those cards you're always going to have someone casting the spell or someone being interacted by the spell. So I think it's you're right, we probably focus a little bit too much on the creatures, but at the same time, that's kind of the bread and butter of Magic anyway, so I don't think it's a disservice.
I remember a time when you used to tell me that creatures used to not be the bread and butter of Magic.
They never know. When it's not they weren't, it's just they were shit. so competitive formats didn't really play them very much. And then quickly, can we touch on Marilyn? Because this also then hints at something else that I wanted.
Touch on Marilyn. Right, sorry. That's fine.
But it's funny because I was also going to have another section about redesigns, and it's funny because the only redesigns I really wanted to talk about were the Returning Legends, where I feel like some of them didn't necessarily feel like they were redesigned appropriately. I have a big issue with how Aisling was redesigned, even compared to her Modern Horizons 3 representation. Like, they've just changed how the artistic direction of her a little bit, and I just don't like it as much. And that's just my personal opinion, and that's fine. I'm not expecting everyone to agree with me. But Marilyn similarly became far more humanoid, which is interesting because it says even in the narrative that she's turning more iridescent, and her carapace is starting to form because she's somewhere between fairy and elf. She was the shell of an elf, but she's essentially developing into a fairy because of Una's essence. Now I don't see that. No. Because she was actually more weird and insectile looking or non-conventional looking as a full-on elf in Marilyn the Morn song than she is in Fae Ascendant, and even worse in the story spotlight where Oko's healing her. I can't remember what the card's name is now, but the facial expression on her, she just looks like a human. Yeah. And that's fine to a point, but the reality is that if she is supposed to be developing more into a fairy, I'd expect her to look less humanoid and more insectile, but that doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, I suppose it's the push-pull between wanting to have that narrative relevance of, like, this is what this character is now, but also wanting it to be a recognisable character callback to a previous character. Yeah. If they had her looking like some kind of weird sort of carapace lady, people would be like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah, I suppose, because if you haven't read the story, it doesn't make sense, right? And it's another aspect, I think, from Flavour when looking at the mechanics. Having elf on the type line makes sense because she was. Mm-hmm. She was an elf shell, and then it's elf fairy noble makes sense. The fairy aspect then being the secondary, but it might eventually take over. I don't think mechanically she should have also been an elf commander. I think it should have just been pure fairies, just happening to have the green of the elf side of thing. It feels too much like they've built a card to go, hey, can we add a colour and a creature type to make this more appropriate for commander? Yeah. And it's like, cool, but now I have to change my blue-black fucking fairy deck to include green because this is a really cool card and I'm only going to be caring about the fairy side of things.
How many green fairies are there?
There's a few, like there's Mana Leaf and Pixie and things like that. Joan had a couple. There's some, not a lot.
Mostly dual colour.
But it's mostly dual, but it creates the voyeur problem of going, hey, this is an elf and a wolf deck. Elves, can you just get out of things? You're already in everything. You're an okay.
Yeah, there's one. There's a. Is it? Oh my god. There's a elf in this deck that has Convoke. I pulled 2 of them during pre-release.
A safe right or something.
Yeah, safe guard keeper or something, which is the flash heroic intervention. With Convoke, right?
One moment, I've got it. Right.
It's really annoying.
Selfless safe right.
That's really annoying that's an elf from a mechanical point of view, because it has Convoke, which means like, okay, you play your creatures into it and it comes in as heroic intervention. And then you pick a creature type. It doesn't need to be elves.
Yeah, but the only thing is that the elves really
You're
cared.
only going to put it in elves.
But also the problem is that elves in this plane don't give a shit about anyone else other than themselves. So why the fuck would you be picking anything other than elf?
That one, mechanically, I'm quite excited for, because it's heroic intervention on a creature.
But you just shove this in Ashling or something, and then suddenly it's an elemental protection spell. And it's like I get it. Like, cool, fine.
Should have been a changeling.
It should have 100%. There's a few... Considering that elves got, what did I say, 29? 29. Which is more than any other type. That definitely easily could have been. Because they even did it, right? They did a changeling... God damn it. What's the bloody kill an artifact or an enchantment? Why can't I? Reclamation Sage. There we go. My lord, my brain fumbled there. But they have a changeling version of that.
Yeah.
So, but that also is an elf. So that's just another version of Reclamation Sage. So why did this have to be specifically elves? And then especially when the elves... Flavour Fleet don't care about the other denizens of Lorwyn. Yeah. Doesn't that sir is a flavour fail. Cool. So fairies, lovely, awesome. Goblins, 23. So we have a little bit more representation. Yes. And our biggest thing I think coming into this, having spoken about the uniqueness of the types of Lorwyn, was: are they going to keep their diversity? Because you had Spriggans, you had various forms of boggarts,
you had straight
up goblins, and do we have that here?
No.
Oh. I was going to say yes.
Oh, do we? No, sorry. We don't have the other types of goblin.
No, we don't have Spriggans, but they are all just boggarts. But the aesthetic diversity, 100% is absolutely still here.
So they spoke about this on this design video. Again, Evan Fong was talking about it. And she was saying how it's difficult to always have 2 things that look very different from Lorwyn to Shadowmoor. So this was more of a vibes-based aesthetic. Like the look of the boggarts, which they kept diverse purposefully, it was more vibes based between like new experiences for like pleasure and joy in Lorwyn, and then new experiences. Why don't I bolt this armor to myself with bone spikes because it feels weird in Shadowmoor? And again, this is straight out of Labyrinth. This is David Bowie dancing around with his dick out in the fucking in the tight trousers, throwing a baby around. That sounds worse if you've not seen the film.
It's really hard to ignore his crotch when you notice his crotch, especially when he's.
I fucking love that.
Yeah, he's just singing to a baby, just really, really out there. It's awesome.
And all of the puppets are obviously incredibly diverse, but they're all clearly goblins. I mean, the boggarts in this set are great.
Yeah, so you've got boar-headed, you've got various forms of different horny, in terms of they've got horns. Who do you reckon's more horny, the boggarts or the elves of Lorwyn?
The boggarts.
Yeah, probably, actually, you're right. Yeah. But then there's even like the boggart Cursecraft. It feels like it's from a different set because it's just a normal looking goblin, which is really telling for how well they did at making the boggarts look fucking weird.
Yes, but so do you have the card on Berry anywhere?
No, but yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
So on Berry's got 4 boggarts on the card art. It gets the.
Is that including the dead one or
not? Exactly. It's got 3 alive ones and a dead one. Now there's some implications with this card.
Yeah, the boggarts have a lot of implications that I don't think we need to talk about.
That's fair. Firstly, how big are boggarts? Because one of them's holding a spoon as if it's a spear.
But maybe it's just a really big ladle.
Maybe it's a giant spoon.
Because it's like for their cauldrons. Yeah.
Okay. Second one.
Sorry, for anyone who doesn't notice, I did like a big 2-handed like gesticulation of stirring a cauldron.
This is a good cross section of completely different looking boggarts, but you can tell they're all the same species, right? And the third, do they mummify? They're dead?
Because the idea, right, is that... So I thought the plan was... Not the plan, but the idea is... Right, here's the plan, guys.
Here's the plan.
Right, so the idea is that the older that goblins get, the more magic they get. And then what you do is when they die, you put them into the ground so their magics can then imbue into the local environment. And then it cycles back into you again, right? Like, it's very much a return to source kind of aspect. But I know what you mean, because it does look mildly embalmed.
Yeah, the arms are all wrapped up.
Yeah, which... Fine... in theory, but implication. Like, maybe, it does look, but it also looks mildly petrified.
Yeah, I like also the fact that some of the boggarts have, and we had this in the last Lorwyn sets as well. Some of the boggarts have like quite nice hair, like done hair, like long with jewels and ties and things.
The thing is, if they're going to be potions and all that kind of thing, if they're going to be all potions and things like that,
just had a cat join us.
Yeah. My lap is now occupied, but. If they're going to be using loads of potions, then they're probably going to be using loads of lotions.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
I made a bad joke.
Cool. I'm sorry I interrupted you twice for you to have to do that.
I know. So giants.
I love giants.
So this is the interesting thing, right? We haven't mentioned for the other two creature types because I said it was true for all of them anyway, but they were also only two colours. The elves lost the white, the fairies lost the white, the goblins have lost the green. Now the giants were across white, green, and red.
Right.
And they're the only creature type that maintains a diversity across all three of the colours. And do you know why that is, Andy?
No.
Because they kind of sit outside of the transition between night and day, don't they? And they never give really a fuck about the aurora. They'd keep their memories for the most part.
Because they sleep through it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, they don't give a fuck. And so it's like, it's quite nice that they've actually kind of maintained here, where, there's still a big diversity, bird and stoneback. What's this guy doing? Is he deliberately storing these rocks, or are they just growing out of his back? Because that's like, Hamlet back Goliath seemed way more comfy. But you've also got Bree of Clown Stoutarm, which is a throwback to Brion. Boldweir Aggressor, which was the Boldweir Intimidator. I like the fact that Boldweir is just full of these big-ass giant warriors going, yeah, you want to fucking fight, you little man? No! I like that Curious Colossus turns all of your opponent's creatures into cowards because it doesn't matter what they are, a giant is bigger.
Yeah.
Like, it's phenomenal. Like, the giants here, they feel like lumbering continents, you know? They just happen to happen around the people.
They're big, they're physical, but they're not necessarily stupid, but they're also not necessarily, like, super smart. Like, you have, like, clearly, like, intelligence and empathy with someone like Bree, right?
Yeah, Bree, yeah.
But then you look at something, there's card arts where, like, you've got fairies pulling nose hairs out of the giants.
Yeah, what's that called? Tweez or something like that, yeah.
And then you have cards like Aurora Awakener, which is a giant druid. So obviously the it's not really played upon. It said it wasn't played on in the story, and the cards only kind of hint at it. The giants are often sort of asleep and like dreams and kind of play into their whole aesthetic, which is kind of very whimsical and like very gentle for what is essentially the most destructive forces on the plane, right? Because giants are huge and they're big. And then to have Aurora Awakener be this thing that when it wakes up, it has this explosion of activity. Like you can grab things out of your deck and put them straight onto the battlefield. And then it looks really simian and ape-like.
Yeah, I was going to say the facial hair makes it look really gorilla-like.
And like the teeth and like even like the kind of hands and feet make it look very ape-like. And it's just this idea that like giants can.
Yeah, has it only got 3 toes? It looks like it's only got 3 toes.
Maybe
on the
in
foot.
that artwork, yeah. And I just think like they're diverse enough that they can be sort of like again transitional across what humans.
Wait, hold the fucking phone. It's true across all giants. All the giants on Lorwyn only have 3 toes on their feet.
Which I don't know if that's true across all Lorwyn. Maybe that's a redesign.
For a Lorwyn Eclipse specifically, anytime you can see a giant's foot, it has 3 toes.
Well, there you go.
That's funny.
There's
digits, I guess.
There's a really cool giant card. I'm just trying to find it now. Oh my gosh, why can't I find it right now? Oh yeah, there it is. Goliath Daydreamer, which is 2 red.
Yeah, Omarion. The most to me, as much as Nilsham is phenomenal, Omarion is the quintessential Lorwyn artist, in my opinion.
Yeah. A very similar art.
That aesthetic is that soft palette, pastel colour. It's exquisite.
Sort of like gentle line work.
Yeah.
Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell from your hand, exile that card with a dream counter on it instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. Whenever this creature attacks, you may cast a spell from among cards in your own exile. You own an exile with a dream counter on them without paying its mana cost. So it's this idea that this giant is dreaming of all the spells and magic in the world because that's his happy place. And then when he kind of moves through the world, he manifests them into existence.
I imagine it's almost like he's snoring.
Oh, a little bit.
So every time he snores, he exhales a spell that he's dreaming.
The artwork also has quite funny implications. You can see... I don't know if it's a Kithkin, but you can see a little humanoid figure next to his arm.
Oh, that is absolutely a little Kithkin.
To give some sort of scale. He's got a cartwheel as an earring, but then the little tiny book he's holding is also the same size as the cartwheel.
Yeah.
Which means it's either a very tiny cart or a very giant...
The most curious thing about this is it's a giant wizard outside of Kaldheim or any other of the...
Giant wizards are, like, weirdly common.
It's a strain, especially for this setting.
Yeah.
It's unusual because they're not normally known for their like lore. As you said, they're more druidic than they are.
But do you think it's like he's like an accidental wizard because he's clearly
I don't think anything about everything that's happening in this text box they are aware of whatsoever.
No.
It might be that when they wake up, they're the hovel hurler, where they're just throwing things around, and they don't know that when they go to sleep, they turn into this sage. I love
this card. This is one of those cards that I really wish was a legendary, so I could put it as a commander.
Yeah, it's a very cool effect. I think it's a shame, apart from Bree, that we didn't really get any other legendary because we never saw We saw, what's her chops? I can't remember what her name is. Roisin. There we go. Come on, brain. We saw her in Modern Horizons 3, but we didn't see her here.
It was also another Lands Matter deck. I know.
Yeah, it was an X cost thingy. Yeah, but it was way better than the other one.
There's a Kaldheim commander that's sort of giant commander focused, but I really want a Giants Matter.
Yeah, it's like Easgear or whatever. Right? Yeah. If whenever giant deals XX damage, then you can
even if it's just like even if it's just a cast enabler, like I mean, I suppose I could do. I've done quite a lot of big mana decks recently. I suppose I could do like a big mana Giants deck. Anyway, one more giant that I want to talk about, just very very quickly, is where are they? Brambleback Brute.
Yeah,
which is now in Miller artwork.
What does that remind you of?
Well, it joins the illustrious pantheon of giants that use the landscape as capes.
Yeah, Realm Cloak Giant, right?
Specifically. Yeah, it's great. I don't think it's an homage to it directly, but it definitely is becoming, like, if we've got a white and a red one, we just need, like, a blue one now. We'll have, like, the Jeskai.
This is also another hint of where the halo around her head.
There's quite a lot of that.
This is the Eclipsed thing, which is only touched on, but not really, like, it's not even a mechanical, obvious thing here.
Aurora Awakener's also got a little
exactly, yeah. So that's kind of annoying that there's hints of it, but you don't see enough of it for it to be anything more than, I wonder why. And then you could talk to someone who's read the Planeswalker's Guide, and then you're like, okay, so it's just a little bit of a sprinkling of additional flavour. I guess we should talk about Merfolk as well.
Oh, fucking, there are so many peoples.
Yeah. 21 cards, so we're back to like a normal, like 20-ish, I think they've done for the major representations. Sorry, for Giants, I think it was only 11.
Yeah, I mean, Giants aren't, they're in the background, aren't they?
And also they're big mana, so you don't really want too many of them because it's hard to make small lower mana cost Giants. The Meros, they lose their black side, the cutthroat side, but even though there is a little bit of a representation there anyway, but they are solidly within their white-blue. This is probably, for me, the most perfect... God, I really wish I had an OG Lorwyn Merfolk deck, because all of these cards are really fun to put in there, doing your tap-on-tappy shenanigans. They feel really synergistic. They feel like they all work really well together. Again, a diversity, everything from Deepway Navigator, which is like yellows and greens. You then have Silvergill Peddler, who is like almost like reddish, like orange-reddish. But then you've also got something like Tributary Vaulter, which has additional fins coming off of them, but they're more of like a grayscale. You've got Wonderbrine Preacher, who has like the extended lower jaw and the anglerfish light thing on the top of it. The fact that there are different types of fish represented on the Merfolk, so it's not just, hey, different humans with different fins. It's like, well, there's a massive diversity of different types of fish. Same with the birds, right? Of where we got the creature comforts, and it's like, why so many of them birds? It's like, well, there's actually a lot of different types of birds, so it doesn't feel too weird. But there is a massive diversity across the entire creature type here, which is awesome to see, because the Meros were great. I think the Meros, their community aspects, they feel a little less sinister, even though there are cards like Gravelgill Scoundrel, which feels way more like the
Gravelgill Scoundrel.
It's
very shambles shark.
It is very shambles sharky.
That's so funny.
But you do see both the grace and the sinister qualities as well, which I think is good to see. I don't think you get as much of that in, say, like the Goblins. The Goblins just feel like a bunch of different weird boggarts. I think the Boar ones probably feel a little bit more animalistic, and you could probably put more akin to Shadowmoor. Whereas the Meros feel a little bit less like I don't feel like they change as much. Like, I feel like their change is similar to like the Elves, of where it's mostly an aesthetic change, but the Elves get really, really pissed off about their aesthetic change, whereas the Meros don't really seem to care as much about it. Don't really have much more to say about the Meros.
It's interesting because I think, weirdly, across all of Magic, I think the Meros of Lorwyn Shadowmoor are probably the most interesting, because they're not just water elves, which unfortunately a lot of merfolk feel like sometimes. Yeah. A bit like how Vidalkans just kind of feel like science elves. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, they're all a bit too ethereal for their own good. And it is a shame that maybe there isn't more to say about it. However, when you're in a set with all these different fantasy tropes, some of them are just going to be a bit more resonant, and I just don't think the merfolk quite get there.
No.
Not all the time.
But again, there's nothing offensive here. And again, I wish I had a Mero deck, because there would be a lot of these cards I'd just be like, yeah, absolutely, get them and put them in. Next, we look at Treefolk. Oh, poor Treefolk.
Yeah, what happened to Treefolk? Again, a bit like Giants. I wish there was a really strong Treefolk.
Well, Doran, I think, is actually surprisingly powerful compared to his older version. The fact that he gives creatures +X+X equal to the difference between their power and toughness can create some real wackadoodle scenarios.
Yeah.
Like, what's that overkill spell from Final Fantasy where a creature gets -0, -9999? And if you do some layery things, you can make it so the creature gets like a plus 10,000 power or whatever. You don't care. That's good.
Sounds like the kind of thing a Final Fantasy card game should have.
Good. Wonderful. But there's only 7 cards here. Also across all 3 colours. It's weird we only have, outside of Doran, there's 1 green, but there are 2 white and 2 black. So out of all of the colours of the tree folk, green is the least represented in Lorwyn Eclipsed, which is kind of interesting.
Really?
But I also really like the fact that you get the black poplar kind of style tree folk, which is something you don't typically get in other sets. And I know that we said outside of Lord of the Rings, which doesn't count because it's not a universes within, this is the closest to Ents that we have within Magic. Most of the other tree folk are just, this tree can walk. Whereas these ones have faces. And does that mean if they have a mouth and they eat and they talk, does that mean they also have an ass where they shit? Because that's a question I'm asking, apparently.
What?
Yeah, well, I mean, trees normally, like, they feed through their roots, right? So why do they need a
yeah,
mouth?
Well, sort of. They also the leaves also feed.
Yes, but that's what, so more reasons as to not need a mouth, right?
Well, they need a mouth at all.
But they could probably talk through the mycelium or whatever,
Okay,
right?
but right, so you're assuming that they have that because they've got like humanoid features that their internal system is also matching up. The mouth might literally just be a way to vibrate air through an orifice.
Well, because Doran doesn't have a mouth, so I don't know how Doran talks.
It's sort of, you know what? I would argue it's sort of weird that mammals have a mouth that is not only the talky hole, but also
it does the holy,
the eaty hole,
Yeah.
and also the kissy hole.
Well,
That's
the kissy one, I think, is something that we've culturally put on. But it's the same thing if we're like a cloaca, right?
All right, I'm not saying like fucking dogs kiss in the same way.
But you know what I mean? Like, because obviously, like birds and everything have the cloaca, right? Where it's just like, hey, it does all the things, it's a hole for all of it, you know. And you just gotta have different valves within it.
But they don't eat through the cloaca.
No, I agree. But it's also still used for, if anything, it's used for like more important things of like excretion, right?
Are you saying shitting is more important than eating? I think they're kind of equal.
I think, very much it's important that things go in, but it's very important that those things
No, I'm not a biologist.
But it's also interesting that we have multiple holes for things coming out, whereas we only have one hole for things going in. Well, don't make the face! Don't make the face!
I know.
Don't make the face! I don't know, man.
I'm saying like light passes into the eye. That's all.
Also, some of the tree folk have these lovely little like forehead thingies where they have little crescent moons on their foreheads. That's quite cute, little decorative bits.
Oh, what do you think? Do they fuck with those? Do you think?
Oh, for God's sake! Great, wonderful. And then the last creature type, I'm sure there are other ones that I haven't really touched on, but the last big one is elemental. I left this to last because it is the largest number with 34, but also that is larger and inflated because it joins both the elementals that are more conceptual from the Primal Beyond, as well as the Flamekin, Rhymekin. Fuck you, Cinders, you didn't get representation in this set, even though you were mentioned in the narrative. I don't really know how I feel about the elementals. The Flamekin don't seem to do anything new. The Rhymekin, I feel hugely underrepresented. I think there's, 1, 2... 3, 4. Okay, there's 4. There's 4 Rhymekin within the entire thing, and none of them seem to do anything. When you cast a spell with mana 4, draw a card. When this creature dies, draw a card. Like, what's the flavour for that? When you cast a thing with 4 or more power, get +2. I don't see any of the narrative. I guess, right, so narratively the idea is if when you become a Rhymekin, you're a little bit more, like, true to you're like, you know what? I didn't get super emotional about the change. I've internalized it. I'm actually now way more chill. But you know, like is that it? Like the reason why they all draw cards is because they're just smarter and chiller and calmer now, and they're like, hey, you know what? Now I'm not a fiery hothead. I'm now like cool. We can have a normal conversation, and I know stuff about things, and I've discovered myself. Are they just the tryhards? Just the tryhard side of the Flamekin?
Well,
I remember when I was young, I used to party all the time, but then I discovered myself, and now I'm into darning. You know?
Yeah, I kind of don't drink anymore.
Yeah, right? It's like, I just kind of like, I didn't like poisoning myself anymore. And this is mildly offensive to certain people, I'm sure, but there does feel...
Yeah, well, look, we're not advocating for being an alcoholic.
No, it's just there does seem to be, there is an ecstatic quality to the Flamekin that I don't like the Flamekin in the set either. I don't feel like they're doing anything new or different. And maybe that's a betrayal because I don't think any of the other creature types were doing something new or different either.
I suppose the others show like a real refining of what they were, whereas they've sort of muddled a little bit the flame.
Because the Flamekin always supposed to be, let's go super hard, because when Shadowmoor does come, we turn into cinders, everything's kind of bad. So let's live life while we can. Incandescent Soulstoke, you know, like, and they kind of have this idea, explosive prodigy, enraged flamecast, like, they do have it to a point. Like, they've even, like, reprinted Smoke Braider to be Flame Braider, and she's even more, like, dancing around with flame. Like, it's not present, but there seemed to be slightly more celebration to the original Flamekin, and here it just doesn't, because they're trying to balance this, we're both Flamekin and Rhymekin, and then you don't have the Cinder aspect to kind of reflect that off of. It just doesn't feel like it's as pronounced, it doesn't feel like it's as well articulated, and maybe also it's just they did as much as they could with the Flamekin in the original Lorwyn, and there isn't much new space to tread.
Again, I sort of feel like it suffers a little bit from Lorwyn's problem, which is maybe doing a bit too much. Maybe I'm too stupid to fully get the lore of the Flamekin, but it being such a central part of the original Lorwyn narrative doesn't necessarily mean that it made any sense. And in fact, probably means that it didn't make much sense, because people were just like, she steals the elemental's flame and that kills everything, but also she destroys everything, but that's different. Like,
yeah, the Ashling the Extinguisher side of her was actually like really super cool and interesting, and we just don't kind of get that. I mean, the one card I lied, sorry, there is a Cinder in the set, Flaring Cinder, and it's just the moment between Flamekin and Rhymekin, and the flavor text for it is, am I losing myself or realising my true nature? Oh, shut the fuck up. Go have a gap year, alright? Go to fucking Marrakesh, alright? Shut up, get over yourself. The other side of the elementals, which we already kind of spoke to about earlier, but we'll go in deeper now, are the Primal Beyond elementals. And as much as there are less, because there is less within this set naturally, because it's less card stock, the ones that we get are they do seem very cool. I do really like them. You do have Shimmer Creep, which is this weird goat head spider iridescent thing. You have Moon Shadow, which some people have been like, is this supposed to be an articulation of Sheoldred? But it doesn't make sense because Sheoldred was supposed to be Eldraine. Because some people are like, oh, maybe like the idea of the Phyrexians, like there was an aspect of them that kind of filtered into the plane and then it's been represented and regurgitated out from the Primal Beyond.
What do you mean Sheoldred was meant to be Eldraine?
So originally, back when they were doing a Praetor for each set, and we got Jin with Neon Dynasty, we got Urabras with New Capenna, we got Vorinclex with Cowtime, we were going to give us Sheoldred right before then the original Eldraine, but it was too close, they thought, since the last time that we'd seen the Phyrexians.
Oh.
But she was going to be this weird witchy person in the woods somewhere. And eventually they cut her and she ended up being in the Dominaria United set where she was part of the Phyrexian Dreadnought. But originally she was supposed to be hinted at right at the end of the Eldraine set, and that was supposed to be the kickoff of the foreshadowing of the Phyrexians. But there is a certain aspect to Moonshadow that looks a little bit like Sheoldred on the end of that fucking Phyrexian Dreadnought. And it's maybe there's an aspect, and people spoke about this, of like maybe Phyrexia left a lingering aspect of itself behind, you know, and then that got, you know, pulled into the Primal Beyond ether and then again regurgitated back out, because these are representations, right? Even Squawk Roaster is fantastic. Flavor text: as Sanar watched the tangle of chirps and flames run by, his eyes lit up. I want one, he whispered. Fantastic. And this is a weird, like gooey turkey-looking thing with a nest with 3 heads coming out, and it is just a flame. It's wonderful. This is the kind of shit I'm here for. Shine Striker, Ron Spencer, let's go.
Yeah.
What is that? Look at that. It looks horrible. It's abhorrent.
I don't suppose we've spoken too much about the individual artists they brought back, but like they've definitely brought back a lot of legacy artists, some of which haven't worked on the game for like, you know, since Tempest. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's quite a lot of them.
And this is the kind of set you want to bring people back for, because it does feel like this feels like an old school set, and the art aesthetic for it feels old school, which is why I think it's been very popular, because we haven't had art like this in a while. And as much as Lorwyn had its haters and its naysayers because it had this weird whimsy to it, we're a much more grown-up audience. You wouldn't know by the Universes Beyond rhetoric, but we are a much more grown-up audience of Magic players, and I feel like we're way more willing to accept, especially after Eldraine and Bloomburrow, this kind of whimsy and take it at face value of being like, you've got the Geiger-esque aspects of Phyrexia, but then you can also have this soft, lovely whimsy and it feel like it's appropriate within the world of Magic. So we spoke about, like, it's a representation. I guess we should push into Incarnation.
Yeah.
Because we have another cycle of Incarnations. Technically, we have 2 cycles of Incarnations. It's just one of them's in the Commander set. And that's a cycle of Encore-based cards, whereas this is a combination of the Hatchlings and then the incarnations. Well, not even necessarily the hatchlings. There was just a bunch of cards in the original Lorwyn block which were hybrid, and then depending on whether or not you paid the red mana or the white mana, you would get one effect or the other. Now these cards are evoke hybrid incarnations, so you can hybrid evoke them out for 2 mana, the 2 hybrid mana that they are, and then the card will have an effect when you cast it of using either, say, let's use Vibrance for example, 3 Gruul in terms of hybrid, Gruul, hybrid. You can evoke it for 2 Gruul hybrid, and when a creature enters, if it was cast and you cast it with 2 red, it deals 3 damage to any target. If it enters and was cast and you paid 2 green, you may search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle, gain 2 life. So with the evoke, you can only ever get one of these 2 effects. There's no way for you to do blinky nonsense shenanigans like you used to be able to do with Muldrifter as well. Probably good, because these cards would be even more busted than they are now. But for their hard cost, you can afford for all of them to do both effects. Obviously, it requires you being very heavily green and red, or you can just evoke it for one of the effects of either, which gives these cards huge flexibility, massive flexibility. And because of that flexibility, it always makes cards more powerful because you can do more with them. The 5 things we've seen being Vibrance, which Gruul, Wistfulness for Simic. Sorry, I have to scroll back up again.
That's all right.
Emptiness for Orzhov, Deceit for Dimir, and then Catharsis for Boris. And I think these are probably more evocative than the monocolor incarnations that we got before, which, if off the top of my head, if I can remember, were Purity, Hostility, Subtlety, Dread, and Vigor.
Yeah,
we got
nicely
there.
done.
We did it. These seem fucking excellent. This is pure primal beyond elemental bullshit. I actually kind of feel like every elemental that isn't a Flamekin should have been an incarnation. The problem is that incarnation has a heavy amount of weighting with it being, like anger and all of the original cycle from if they're in your graveyard and you control a land of the same colour, or the same type, so a mountain, and have anger in your graveyard, all your creatures have haste. I like the idea it represents something bigger than a creature. It represents something even bigger than an enchantment. It's almost like a world enchantment. It's something that sits almost like emblematic. But it does feel like a lot of these cards could have been incarnations outside of just giving us a feeling. Like the idea of Catharsis making creatures and then giving all of your stuff haste, you can justify that, it makes sense, but at the same time I feel like most of the elementals within the plane could have been incarnations. And it's interesting that they're not all incarnations, because I feel like they are all incarnations maybe of a creature or a certain celebration or something, whereas obviously these are all incarnations of certain feelings and certain emotions, which makes them, I guess, that stage up in the kingdom,
Yeah.
You've got your lesser elementals. So would you put the Flamekin below or above, if you were going by hierarchy in terms of like power and standing? Would you put them below?
Oh yeah.
Because I kind of want to separate them out completely. I kind of think
suppose
of them
so,
separate.
but like the Flamekin are almost like their physical body is like entrapping the Inferno. I can't remember the name of it. Is it like the Great Inferno or something similar?
Yeah, I think it's like something flame.
The greater fire elemental. Yeah. Like they are like aspects of that thing, whereas the incarnations are sort of unbound by any sort of realistic physical form. And like the physical form that we see them in is more sort of like just a way to express themselves in reality.
Express yourself. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like it's between the two artworks. We haven't really talked about the alternate artwork, and we probably will a little, but maybe not too much because this is not a visual podcast. But the alternate artworks for them actually kind of stick very close to looking like the versions that are on the regular artwork. So the art style must have been quite deliberate in going, it needs to look like this, and then you can be a bit more flexible. Like Emptiness for both of them, the face is just a hole.
Yeah.
Because obviously emptiness, and this idea of the void, it's almost like reminds me of Everything Everywhere All at Once with the Everything Bagel. And you look into the middle and you're like, oh, I don't want to go in there.
Well, it's like Erdo and Islu. They're not incarnations, which is actually kind of weird. They're elemental gods.
Yeah.
And they are purposely designed to be sort of difficult to understand. And I think, again, to reference it back to that video, I think they were looking at, oh my gosh, Reveliark. Yeah, Reveliark, which...
Revelark.
Reveliark, which was sort of like, the artwork itself is actually still kind of hard to understand, right? It's like multiple wings and like a big bunch of flowers. And Erdo Islu is meant to be this kind of like, yes, it's a body, yes, it seems like an animal, it's definitely got wings and it definitely has legs. And it has a head, but the head is also a celestial sun and moon sort of thing that's going on.
Yeah, there's no face, even if the story makes it sound like there was some.
Sure. But like, I kind of feel like, yeah, I don't know if the elementals are meant to be on the plane of Lorwyn Shadowmoor, are meant to be understood in the same way that they are on other planes.
Precisely. They're supposed to feel like every time you look at them, you go, what the hell is going on here? And I kind of like that with the incarnations, the idea of telling an artist to create an abstract version of a certain feeling. Like, I would never have thought catharsis should have been like a snail, but catharsis shouldn't feel rushed, right? It should feel slow and deliberate. Because it's not excitement, you know? It's like vibrancy. It makes sense that it's this puppy. It's this like young puppy like running around like really excited, because that makes sense because vibrance is ecstatic. It's almost like catastrophic in the way it can be a sudden burst. But catharsis, yeah, the more I think about it, should feel slow and deliberate and considered.
Yeah.
Apple and rhubarb.
Oh,
it's
very
quite
good.
tasty.
Oh, yeah, it's not the glasses.
Did I mix up the glasses? Sorry. Might be. I even like the idea that deceit has an anglerfish thing, because the idea is like, hey, look at this lovely, pretty thing. Nom nom. That's the deceit, you know. Wistfulness, I think, is slightly less interesting, because wistfulness is a harder concept, I think, to pin down. But that's all the five of them.
There is still one group of creatures that we've not spoken about.
Yes, sorry, you're right. Shapeshifters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what has old Andy Man's opinion been on shapeshifters?
You don't like the squidgy, weirdy changeling shapeshifters, I can understand why.
If there's only been one plane so far that I've gone, yep, those shapeshifter changeling,
and that was Kaldheim.
Yeah,
the Moriat, or whatever they're called.
Yeah, well, the Glade Walkers. They live on Lityara. That's about all I remember what they've been called.
Mate, I just love the word Lityara.
Yeah, their whole vibe is great. I love it. I wish there was more of them so I could build decks out of them. I fucking love what they've done with the shapeshifters this time around.
So I was going to say, it's interesting that they seem to be way more deliberately humanoid.
Oh, I was going to say the total opposite.
I guess right. So I think so maybe humanoid is the wrong word. They seem way more deliberate.
They are more defined.
Yeah.
They look like Jim Henson puppets.
Yeah, they still have that weird kind of beaky quality to them. Yep. It's almost like they probably felt the feedback and went, well, we didn't really commit to anything specific.
They look like Teletubbies.
Yeah, and I like this idea that they all have, like, it's a false representation, right?
Yeah.
Like, Mutable Explorer doesn't look like anything other than, like, okay, you're clearly a shapeshifter.
Well, so here's the thing. So if we take Mutable Explorer as an example, which is a Wayne Reynolds artwork, sup Wayne, friend of the podcast. he doesn't remember who we are a bit. That is a changeling that is trying to emulate the idea of, he's clearly seen a Kithkin with a big backpack with like pots and pans and shit and a light and a
but he doesn't know how to make them look properly like that yet.
No, and so he's going, well, I want to be an explorer. I want to try that. So I'm going to have all the backpack and shit. And the only thing that's not part of his body is the lamp on the end of a staff, which is still his body.
Yeah.
Which is really cute.
It's very cute.
And then you compare that to something like Mischievous Sneakling, which is something that's clearly seen like a cross between like a boggart and an elemental.
Yeah.
So it's got this weird little lizard body, but it still has the eyes and the little beaky face.
Yeah.
And then compare that yet still to something like Prideful Feastling, which has clearly seen a lion somehow. But like,
well, I actually think the Feastling might be a reference to the Hatchling. There was the Orzhov Hatchling was very. Let me find it.
But like, what I'm saying is that all of these changelings, instead of them being this kind of weird, sinister thing on the plane, I always felt they were quite sinister and like they were trying to steal people's identity. These feel much more like they're trying on different identities throughout the plane, and even the cards which explicitly sort of go like, you know, in flavor text you'll have flavor text. I can't remember the cards specifically, but it's like, you know, the Kithkin saw themselves and then noticed the like yellow eyes, and it kind of seems a little bit kind of sinister in one way. In other cards it seems a lot more playful, and the idea that each individual changeling, ironically, when they're at a baseline, they all look exactly the same. And it's only when each changeling goes, I kind of want to do this thing, or I kind of want to do that thing. And some of them even do things...
Voracious Hatchling.
Voracious Hatchling.
It is an absolute artistic throwback. Yeah.
And even something there's another one which kind of goes gangly stompling, where it just wants to be a giant, right?
Just wants to be a big dude.
Yeah, and I love that, and I find that's so much more personality for when you have like a changeling group or a changeling like kindred type, which is like like Ditto. What's Ditto's personality in Pokemon? Like they have to have such a strong identity when they're not changing. They have to have a motivation. The motivation informs what they do. And these guys just want to be everything, which is great. And I find it so much more fun. It makes so much more sense that they can, like, Changeling smooths out all the kindred stuff, like, mechanically. They are across all the colours, like, but they still are predominantly in green.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's great. I love it.
And I think the biggest thing about this is that I'm glad that they've done that, because the cost it came at was the fact that we don't see any mimics outside of the little artistic reference, and there are no Pukas outside of Puka's Eye, which is just a random artifact, and then Puka Covenant, which is a card from the Commander decks. So you don't actually have any Pukas within the set, and you don't have any mimics within the set, which I know were the Shadow Maw variety of changelings, but they seem to have kind of gone, hey, look, let's just let the changelings be the changelings. But even like sometimes when they're representing like the sizzling, wait, let me just quickly refind my... Go away, tree folk, don't need you no more. No, not changing, shapeshifter. Sizzling changeling. Yeah. Now, if you looked at that and just had creature type lizard and took out the changeling, wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah.
Couldn't know. But at the same time, you look at the eyes and you look at the beak and you go, well, of course, yeah, it still matches, but sometimes that thing matches so well that it doesn't need to pretend anymore.
Yeah.
And it may be that shapeshifter is just really, really good at pretending to be that lizard.
Yeah.
You know, maybe there are certain shapes that are much harder to hold, you know? Maybe it's much more difficult. Like, Mutable Explorer, probably a really, really advanced changeling because they've got a whole fucking backpack full of stuff but can't make the textures look right or the colours look right because they're too focused on having 8 different fucking things in their backpack that they're supposed to pretend to be.
Constable Odo, am I right? My Deep Space Nine heads will know exactly what I mean there, and so will everyone else come the end of the year when Star Trek comes to Magic the Gathering.
But then can we also take a moment and look at chitinous graspling?
Oh yeah.
RKF, I don't think you understood what your what your remit was, because every other changeling looks like a changeling.
Yeah.
That looks like an elemental to me.
Yeah.
And it even has changeling ability. And now this is where I think the art direction might have just been lost a little bit of where they went, cool, I'll just do whatever, I'll make it look like elementally. And I don't think that RKF would have been able to... This is not to sell him short at all, but I don't know if his art style would have lent well to this weird, goofy, beaky morphling.
No.
So I'm kind of glad they didn't go for that, but it is kind of interesting to see that there was a cohesion within every other card, apart from Chitinous Grasping, where RKF just went, yeah, I'll do what I want, mate.
One more creature type?
Sure.
Noggle?
Yeah. I just didn't have it set on my thing.
2 cards for Noggles.
Yeah,
one of them is not a
technically,
creature.
yeah. And also, they decided to not make them blue anymore.
So you got Noggle the Mind, which is an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature loses all abilities, and there's a colourless Noggle with base power 1 toughness. So neither of the Noggles.
Wait, what colour? What? Because there is a red spell as well that has the Noggle, the key art one where he's like.
That one. Oh,
that's just a pump spell, I believe.
Oh, okay. So there's 3, and then you have the creature Noggle Robber.
Yeah,
which is a
Noggle Robber.
You can't say that too many times, drunk. One Gruul hybrid. For a creature Noggle Rogue. When this creature enters or dies, create a treasure token, which is the same way as Patron of the Arts.
Yeah.
Which is the Viashino one. Mm-hmm. Dragonfolk one, I suppose. Noggles have no concept of money, but they do have a high affinity for shiny.
What this tells me is that they couldn't figure out how to make them anything more than what they were, and what they were wasn't very interesting to begin with.
Yeah.
So they were like, cool, we'll just put one in there to satisfy people. It even, part of me, looks more like a hare than a donkey.
Well, now, isn't that like... Did you ever play Star Fox 64?
No. Do a barrel roll! No, I didn't. No.
So, you have... oh my god, I played the shit out of it, and I can't remember. Peppy. Is it Peppy the hare? Yeah, I'm going to go with that one. There's a character in that which is a hare, but everyone always thought they were a donkey.
Oh, okay, makes sense. Because I guess they're not too... Jackalopes are like halfway between, right?
A jackalope is a rabbit with deer antlers.
So then the other creature type that we didn't...
Nothing like what you just said.
Yeah, fine, cool, whatever, we'll move past. So one more creature type, oofs.
Oh, God.
So, of course...
There's too many.
Well, no, because this is fine. There's only 2 of them, right? And it's funny because it is exactly what we spoke about the last time of where there isn't a huge number of oofs in the game regardless. The 2 that we got... One of them, Nilsham, Glisterbairn. We even get a quote from them. We'll leave this one here and that one there. Then wait to see who comes to share. Who made your Raccoon onesie? Is it part of you?
Yeah.
Is it not part of you?
Yeah.
Is the Silver Surfer thing? Is the board part of the body?
Yeah.
Is the board part of the body? And then Shadow Urchin by Ron Spencer. This is also like this is like the dichotomy of just magic art, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the nice oof by Niels Ham, and then the fucking weird Urchin by Ron Spencer. Really cool artwork for both. And it's just funny that they did go, cool. We know they were in this last set. They weren't even represented massively. Let's just make sure we just do one of each.
Yeah.
And yet, still, how the hell is that the same creature type? You know, I'm showing Andy the two pictures side by side. Just go into your Scryfall Advanced Search, put oof, crime. Put oof and Lorwyn Eclipsed in. It'll bring the two cards up and look side by side and say, how can these two creatures have the same creature type? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Cool.
So we're running out of time a little bit.
Yeah, I only have a couple of other ancillary things to talk about. Scarecrows weren't really represented much. I think there's one in the set, but there is a Wicker Smith's tools in the Commander set, which means there's still someone out there making scarecrows, which I feel like at this point there's a reason there aren't many, because stop making scarecrows. Not a good idea. Which is kind of cute.
It was a bit too folk horror for what this set
really
is.
And it also, think about it, that's way more Innistrad than it is Lorwyn, and they kind of I think they can pull that over. And then the other thing I thought was kind of cute when I was looking through was Chronicle of Victory. That the implication that these, and this is like the 6-mana artifact where you choose a creature type, creatures get +1/+1 whenever you cast a creature of that type, you draw a card. I didn't even need to, didn't even double check it because it's just generic value for Kindred. However, I just kind of think it's funny that the implication that the Geiger machines couldn't take on the whimsy of Lorwyn.
Yeah.
Like that. Sorry, Elish, if you couldn't beat Lorwyn, maybe you fucked up the invasion a little bit, you know?
I mean, you could say that for any pre-industrial plane where you sort of think this advanced metal by sort of cyborg race with dimensional travel, and you're getting beaten by goblins with sticks.
Do you think there's something to be said that the fact that they invaded Dominaria, and Dominaria had its own diversity and expanse, and they went, right, well, this is probably the full swathe of things out there in the multiverse. Then when they went and investigated the rest of the multiverse, they went, oh god, it's really weird out there, fuck, oh, well, this wasn't smart, was it?
I think it's the Ewok fallacy, how did the Empire get beaten by Ewoks? And it's because they weren't expecting to be crushed by, logs and
Yeah,
shit.
exactly, yeah. Who knew there was stone? I've not seen stone, I've only seen metal.
We've been worrying about, plasma bolts and shit, and, actually this fucking rock...
Turns out a spear gets right through that energy shield, who knew? Yeah, it's kind of crazy,
well,
right?
That's the Dune thing as well, right? All the little personal shields, a high-speed bullet can't penetrate the shield, so everyone uses machetes.
I think the more you think about the diversity of the multiverse, how silly the idea of invading all of it at once was.
Oh, don't even. Not to bring it back to Star Wars, in fact. I was watching a video the other day, because it's what I fucking do all my time off, where someone was like, how can the Separatist army control all of these different planets that are part of the Republic? And they say something like, there's something like 7 billion planets in the Republic, and to do that,
insane.
To have a planet-wide invading force for all of these planets, they would there's no way.
No, what they do is they do the thing that we've done over in Merry Old Earth, where they go, cool, I'm just going to pay the person with the most power to do what I tell them to do, and use the systems in place to help govern them in the way that I need them to.
Well, that's how you really do it, right?
Yeah.
But Elish Norton's not in.
But this is where the sleeper agent for Dominaria works, right? Because it infiltrated things from within. But then it's the outside invasion to every other plane.
Yeah, really, Elish overplayed. I think
it was a very much big narrative part of it, right?
The whole lesson of Lorwyn Eclipsed is that Elish Norton overplayed her hand by having any sort of army or interplanar sort of invading force. She just needed sleeper agents everywhere.
We just go slower.
And doing that all at once would have been enough.
But it's just funny when you see the card Chronicle of Victory, you're like, how did Lorwyn beat Phyrexia? And of course, I'm not against the narrative decision, because it does actually then justify, and as we've just spoken, it's kind of created a better headcanon in our minds, or a better justification of how overextended she was. But it's just funny to see such a juxtaposition of different art styles and different fantasy tropes and things like that. And the fact that Lorwyn, and we said this when we were talking about the story, the fact that Lorwyn sits in its own little bubble. This bubble, as a set, has been ideal. It is the perfect little retelling of the Lorwyn story that worked so well without all of the extra nonsense and fluff that kind of diluted the original block.
Yeah.
Because having 4 sets was too many, and many people agreed with that. But nowadays, having 1 set does feel like too few, and we've spoken about it a couple of times here. I don't think the set suffers for losing the things that it wasn't able to fit in, but I don't think it would have suffered for having more if they did a second set. If they did the day and 1 night, and then at the end of that, they just it's not a matter of retreading the same story. It's more that we'd have seen the slight changes that not having it be the Aurora would have given us, and maybe we could have seen a little bit more of the use, a little bit more of the changes between certain creature types. The fact that you only have 11 fairies does feel a little bit of a betrayal. The fact they could have maybe done more with the giants and had them have a bigger role, considering they sit outside of the cycle. There were lots of, even the Eclipsed side of things. You set up the story in Act 1, and then you investigate this. What does being an Eclipsed being mean for the second set? We didn't get enough of that even within this. And I even think certain narrative choices, like the 5 students, all feel very not of Lorwyn. Because they're not.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. So it works. As we said in the story, having these fish out of water in this plane that shouldn't have things that are outside of the plane interacting with it, because it feels so weird.
Yeah.
It feels so antithetical to have these two things next to each other. Even in the set, you look at Abigail and you go, is that card from this set? I don't feel like that card should be from this set.
Weirdly, even having the hybrid mana, which should feel like they're part of the set, make them stand out.
Yeah, exactly. And even like I forget that Johnny's in the set, because I'm like, because he didn't need to be
I
anyway.
opened Johnny in a boost pack the other day, and I just went, oh.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah. The fact he's just like chaperone of it, like you don't even care. Like even his name isn't this grand thing. He used to be like he beat Nicole Bollis single-handedly.
Well, look.
And he's just a chaperone. He's just students.
This is maybe a different episode where we talk about
punishment you get for joining Phyrexia, bitch.
I think this is maybe a different episode where we talk through how to have the same planeswalkers keep coming back. You have to do completely different things. It's like when we did Chandra. Chandra Dressed to Kill, and it's like I complained forever about how they always just did Chandra Blaze, Chandra Inferno, Chandra on Fire, Chandra's really hot round. And now they did Chandra Dressed to Kill. And immediately I was like, don't like it.
Yeah.
It's really shit.
It's what I asked for, but not like that.
Yeah, not like that. That's really weird. So I guess,
How dare you take what I said and then do it and not do it in the way that I didn't know I wanted it to not be done in.
Yeah, well, Chandra's shit anyway. So.
Good.
Tell us if you think Chandra is shit. I don't care about what you think about Lorwyn. We've done that now.
Yeah.
Tell us via social media. On all the places, but not any of the ones that aren't Bluesky, because we don't do those ones. Yeah,
there's a reason we stopped doing this outro, isn't it?
You can find us on Bluesky at bluesky.social. Not Twitter at mtflavouring. You can find us on our emails, mtflavouring@gmail.com. I didn't mean to say it like that. I used to say what our Twitters were, but neither of us use those anymore.
No, not really.
So don't talk to us on that.
Yeah. So next week is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's funny because this was a lot of positivity with a couple of like, oh yeah, maybe could have been better. And even then, I don't think those could have been better were very, very large. The next episode is going to be a little bit more. Ooh.
As a man who has a literal pizza slice tattoo, I'm gonna say
you don't want them on your lands. Oh, by the way, the full art lands in this set were incredible, but it was just more full art slop. Isn't it funny that we've got to the point now? I don't care about full art lands, even though they're really pretty, and I open them and I put them in decks. I'm like, yeah, every set does it.
See, now I'm on the side of more is more, and I like the fact that we can have a diversity of lands.
Yeah, I just care less about them now.
Well, maybe. I think it's weird the ones that I keep coming back to, like the Theros Beyond Death ones, the ones that were really divisive. Are in more decks of mine than
because those ones typically, if you're going to go for something, if you're going to try and go for something specific, you want something that stands out and is different, kind of like pizza slices.
I'm going to reserve what my opinions are until next week.
You don't want a forest represented by an actual piece of broccoli?
I don't want a mutant turtle hand in there. Just give me the pizza slice.
Yeah, it's like we're going to talk about some pizza gore next week. It's going to be. I say next week. That's very ambitious.
Do you know what I'm really annoyed about the Ninja Turtles more than anything else? And I'm going to foreshadow this for the next episode. I have many opinions about some of the themes that they explore in Ninja Turtles outside of it being UB. That in previous sets I've gone, I really fucking like that. I'm going to have to say how much I don't like it in Ninja Turtles.
That's okay. This is how we find out the reason why we don't like things. Instead of just going, that bad, and then just kind of stopping. Be like, that bad, but let's investigate why. Because there are reasons. And I saw the professor's video recently. Like, we need to stop designing sets like this.
I watched that.
And he put Spider-Man with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm like, objectively, yes. Subjectively, they're two very different beasts.
He was talking about himself. Anyway,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that in the next episode.
Thank you very much for listening. This has been Magic Flavouring.
We'll see you soon.